a man who contradicts. Wait, he's the type of guy who tell you there's no first place, but he's part of a race. Eyes lie, but take a look inside. They move the sights you'll see. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Hi, I'm the OBG, and welcome to the show number 2. Now, I'm always going to start this way, well, for a while at least. This is a show about the people, by the people, for the people, and it can work if you contribute. So please send your stories, things you want me to cover, images, videos, your music, to obgchat@gmail.com, and together we can do this. And the aim is to create a show that grows until we have regular viewers that we can pull away from the mainstream for 10 minutes every day, and that would be a measure of our success.
A show about the people, by the people, for the people.
Okay, I think I've got the jingles worked out today.
You're the producers of the show. I just wanna let you know.
Okay, let's get the show on the road. I'm the OBG. So I just wanted to touch on these topics briefly, and but deeply. You know, you can get a lot done with a few words, and I want to talk about dealing with hate and anger. Now, I've seen a lot of channels actually on YouTube. I don't watch them, to be honest. They pop up sometimes, and I don't want to knock anyone. We're all people. We're all doing our own thing. I talk a little bit later about my view on these things, and these are just thoughts. These are my thinks. And that's where our only freedom really is in our minds. And that's the one thing that governments and state agents and so on, they cannot get from us, and it is what we think. They're trying their best, you know, with Facebook, by looking at our actions and so on, but our actions don't always make us. We can guess much about people by their actions, but we never know what they're thinking. And this is where our freedom really lies. So whatever you think, it's important to think what you think. And whatever you think, as long as you don't act on it, if it's negative, then that's okay. You know, you can fantasize in your head about, you know, like cutting the heads off, like Australian substitute teachers. But don't do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the people who live that escapism, the best are the authors that we like, because if your regular friend suddenly says to you, oh yeah, you know, starts doing something really horrific to people, you think they're nutters, but you read a James Herbert book and go like, oh, that was really good, you know, and you've escaped into the mind of that guy, or Stephen King, and they've got some real horrific stuff in their heads, which they put onto paper. And it's escapism for those who read, and it's cathartic for those likely who write those sort of things. So my view on this, and I'm not covering myself about what I think, kind of, it's okay to hate, but only for a little while, because hate, like all the other emotions, is a valid part of human being, part of our human experience, and it's the same with anger. But the issue is we never really learn to control hate, because we're subdued at an early age, and we're not allowed to express ourselves, and we end up suppressing our most basic emotions. And this is for boys and girls. It's not just about the boys having to hide it, because girls have to hide something else, and it more or less balances out anyway. And, you know, when you're a child, you know, your parents, not all parents, but typically you've experienced it or you witness it. Don't cry, and you're told not to cry. Or if you get angry, that's the one which I feel is most important, which I'm talking about here. If you do get angry, then your parents castigate you, boom, and then you have to subdue that, and you've got all these years of subduing your hate or your anger, and we just never ever learn how to deal with it. And it should be a continual process, you know. Your parents let you go, not smash your room up necessarily, but let you have this fit. And I must admit, I was a little close to this. I'm trying to sound good. I was close to this at one point. What I mean is seeing someone just let their kid have a tantrum. I'm thinking, control your child. But that's because of the way I was raised. And I think it's great. Those kids grow up happy and free, because like as a kid, their parents just let them scream it out, and they slowly learn how to deal with those emotions. But for most of us, we didn't. Every time we're angry, pack that in, you know, at school, at work, and well, if you're still being angry at work, then you understand what I mean. You know, you're some 25-year-old who still hasn't got any control of your emotions, and you know, you're told don't. And what happens there, I believe, is that stuff's inside. We're traumatized now, and we want to let it out. And people find any excuse to let that anger out. And I'm still shocked by the amount of anger that I see expressed by people in very simple, basic or trivial circumstances. It's like they need to get that anger out. And I call them the lynch mob, and it's the majority of people. I talk about a lynch mob later when I talk about Extinction Rebellion. But for example, I've seen, you know, like a group of people sitting in a pub. This is a true story, or based on a true story. And, you know, some guy tries to steal a woman's purse. Now, there's 4, you know, guys there. 2 of them are toughish guys. You know, the third one's really big. They catch the guy, and these guys, if you grill them afterwards or before, they tell you that they believe in law and order and civil society. Yet, these guys will not subdue the guy and call the police. They want to smash him, and then everyone else is watching. Like, dirty thief, kill him, Tony, smash him. And everyone wants to join in and get that anger out and be really angry. And to me, that's exhibits the anger that people hold within them. And it's not only in those situations. We get frustrated with ourselves about things, and you see that anger rise again because we've had no experience in learning how to control it. I'm not talking about abating it. I'm not talking about like not doing it, because we've got all these emotions that we have to express, so we're not complete. So, hate and anger, they often arise when a person or event initiates it. And we really just become angry without reason, which means that it's often laying dormant and it's waiting to be activated. And boy, oh boy, when it's activated, that's when we erupt. And I almost always show my anger immediately, as I'd rather explode and deal with the situation and carry on, whilst the person that causes the fire, lights my fire, leaves the scene untarnished. And if you brought a fire, my friend, I'm afraid you're going to have to share the heat with me. And these events are simply challenges that we have when we're angry, and it doesn't matter how the challenge came about, and we don't often have the choice in how the challenge is presented to us. But once the event has happened, then it's wise to immediately start making a plan to resolve the residual issues, be it by another person or by events that have happened. You know, we create a bond with people that we have a strong emotional response with. And my view is that we shouldn't be bound to people by hate, because you've created a bond now, and you know, with hate with that person. And don't forget that the person that you hate, in your absence, they're unaware of your anger, and they're living, you know, fulfilled lives. Also, I'm up for love, as many of you know, and it's at my core, but I refuse to be just that and to wear the uniform. You know, let me explain. Okay, so being into just one thing alone, you know, making that the core of you, and it's contrived, in my view, is a futile attempt. And I always have a go at the hippies and the New Agers. They're the easiest ones for me. They're the most obvious. And not just the hippies. I mean, people who dress in the uniform, because some people want to express themselves, and it's a sign of, you know, individuality, sometimes of anger. Sometimes they're much in love with the world and they want everyone to know. But people dressing up in this most obvious way, it's like, well, I'm into peace and love. Look, I've got like this hemp, you know, like trousers on, and this floral top, and my hair's in a particular style or dreadlocked, and that's because I'm this. And the thing that puzzles me about that is those people claim to be open-minded into loving everything, but they're still trying to be one thing. And I think, you know, if you learn to be a bit of everything, then you're going to have a more fulfilled life. I mean, that's why it's important to express all of your feelings, even the hate. And the hate actually isn't something that we initiate. It comes from other people very often. And it's not their fault alone. It's how we deal with the situation. But we're stuck on this planet. We're stuck here together. And in fact, as harsh as it sounds, the only way out is suicide. That's the only way you're going to escape. And you don't want to do that because there's so many parties to go to and there's so many people to meet. And ultimately, we're looking for someone like us, someone we can share our experience and stories with. And it's magical when it happens, but never try to make that person your partner. It just doesn't work. You need somebody different to you, and you need to have the ability to love that person for what they are. That was a short one, but... Okay, so moving on, and this isn't for the faint-hearted. I just wanted to talk about this very quickly because I'd like to see, for those of you who are watching, any comments you want to leave behind or send me a message, talk about, and whether you think I should cover this in depth, not this particular case, but the actual subject. And it's about paedophilia and the ring that was just recently busted by US and, international cooperation, in fact. So it was a huge international cooperation across 38 countries, and it saw an arrest of 337 suspected paedophiles and one of Britain's worst child abusers. And the global operation brought down a complex network of perverts who were sharing child abuse videos and images on the dark web. And they were all connected to the Welcome to Video website. And it contained more than 250,000 videos. A guy called Dr. Matthew Fowler admitted 137 offences in 2017. And that included encouraging child rape, sharing images of a newborn baby being abused, and he's currently serving 25 years behind bars. And the investigations that followed led officers to the man that was hosting the website and the images, a man named Yong Woo Son, who's only 23 years old. And when I say only, I don't mean like, he was only 23, it lessens the crime. What I mean, it's such a travesty that a young man who's got so much life ahead of him would want to get involved in this. And I'm going to research his story to see if it was just a young man who got involved early, or maybe at this age, or whether there was some coercion, or it was just purely for greed. So he's from South Korea, and he's already been charged in the US, and he was actually jailed yesterday for in his home country. And a federal complaint in the US says that undercover agents, they traced payments of Bitcoin to the website, which was on a darknet website. And for me, I think if you start seeing news about darknet websites being harbouring paedophile websites or places for criminality, ignore it. If dark site websites didn't exist, paedophiles still do what they do, and they were doing this before darknet websites. It's not an issue. Whatever methods of communication exist, criminals will always use that as a vehicle to, to trade their wares. So anyway, the indictment said that the authorities got a break in their investigation back in 2017 when they found that the source code for the website's homepage failed to conceal an IP address, which is, a unique identifier for computers connecting to the net, and it led them to South Korea. Now, once again, I'm not defending anyone here. They always say that. The thing is, we're being watched constantly, and if they had to wait for a leak or find, we're lucky to get that kind of break, it means that they were monitoring or trying to find this website. And you can hide. I've got a system at home that can hide me perfectly. Shouldn't really say that we're talking about paedophilia websites. There's no connection. But what I mean is, it is possible to hide on the internet and, do whatever you need to do. But the majority of people aren't doing crime who are hiding. There's a lot of us who are just privacy advocates, and we don't want people watching everything we're doing, even if we're just doing, good stuff. I don't mind. There's nothing on the internet that I do. And like you, it's not the fact that you look at porn. You probably don't mind sharing that. It's the type of porn you look at you don't want. It's kind of private. Do you know what I mean? So several of the people who were convicted, they've been convicted of the related crimes, and amongst them was a guy called Carl Fox, 26, from the United Kingdom, and he was sentenced to 22 years for raping a 5-year-old boy and for appearing on an actual video on the website abusing a 3-year-old girl. And as an aside, there's a link between the rise in violent crime and countries being at war. This has been a study for the longest time, and I truly believe that the recent increase in these activities is also down to witnessing a world that is led by corrupt leaders. And it's not to blame them, but just to say, when the world's askew, other men just take it as license to do as they please. And I learned of this in Nicaragua. It was the first kind of country that I've been to that had a recent war. And it's like in many other countries, I've heard the stories, but this one I heard it firsthand of people. As soon as the system starts falling to pieces, men start behaving like animals. There's an increase in rape, child abuse, criminality in general, robberies, and every other crime you could think of. So I think that we're currently living in a world in turmoil, and the crime's not going to dissipate at any time. So,
So baby, I will be listening to OBG.
right, just want to quickly talk about Extinction Rebellion again. And it's something I can't put down. It's in the news this week, let's face it. Greta's fucked off. Don't know where she's gone to. But I still kind of... it's not that I'm just defending Extinction Rebellion itself, but I just know in my heart that protests have been known to have some success, so just keep on trying until you get one anyway. And young people are idealistic, and they have a belief in it. And belief doesn't mean it's true, but I understand the young people, and fighting for a cause is part of growing up. It strengthens our resolve, and it gives us confidence. And young people need a way to burn their energy. They've increased hormonal activity and are often lost for pursuits. So this is something for them to get into. And we're the old folk now. And I'm left wondering if most of us simply forget that we were young once, and we're blindly turning into the very people that we used to fight against. And looking at some of the commentary against Extinction Rebellion and those making the comments, I can see some truth in that. And it makes me wonder if we had the same opposition from older people when we were fighting for causes back in the day, but we just were simply unaware. And the people behind it all, they're just all connected. They're like the Prime Minister, my bad, the Prime Minister or presidents, you know, and they're simply working for the same company in the long run, the same leaders. And also, minister, that's a funny word, by the way. It actually means one who is authorised to perform religious functions or one who is superior in certain orders. So in short, it's like the premier order giver, twats. Anyway, some of it actually looks stage 2. If you look at those guys who are on the train, look again, trust me, you're going to see it now. They look so healthy and so strong. They've got these big, strong thighs and, you know, they're not your standard weak, pale, cow-munching middle-class lads who, you know, I tend to see on the marches. So, you know, what if the entire thing is a setup and it's just there to get the young folk causing mayhem and disruption in London and then banning future marches in London and major cities in unison with a major crackdown on movement in the city. And I mean, this morning I read a story that the Popo were asking people for ID to cross a Lambeth Bridge in London. The police were actually stopping people on Lambeth Bridge and asking them for ID. And to me, that's scary because, you know, what are we heading towards? You'd think the police would try to deal with the situations as they arise. And there has to be some sort of prevention, you know, like pre-crime, not like in the sense that they're doing it. But what they did was they also were an addition to Extinction Rebellion slowing down people's daily trek to work. It's just an additional slowdown. And it also reeks of denying people the right to protest. And in short, it's a load of bollocks. So all the same, it's worth going out to a protest for a day out, even if there is no change. It's a chance to, you know, meet new people, to sing silly songs. And if you're up for it, have a rock. And what about those behind the movement, eh? In all honesty, it really doesn't matter. It's either left-wing or right-wing politics and the rich people behind either group that support it. Both factions are literally or likely working for the man anyway. And Albert Camus once said, the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. And that's not so easy in today's climate, but it's worth living a life attempting to do that. Wearing outlandish garb counts, but the fact that you're turning up for your 9 to 5 every day detracts from that, you know. And if we spent, you know, as much time thinking about ways to be independent, and it does often mean falling foul of the rules, but not necessarily breaking the law, then we could make a life for ourselves. However, you need a strong support network of understanding people. Just as an example, you know, people understand that even though you don't work 9 to 5 and take part in most of society's rituals, you still deserve a holiday and you're still entitled to take part in what they call their free society, just as you would welcome to your world. And that's metaphorically spoken because there's only this one world. And you can argue as much as you like, saying, no, there's more than one world, there's parallel universes and an afterlife, but you're simply pursuing another person's ideology or a fantasy that gained traction. This is it. This is all we have. And if you can't live with that, and you have your irrational, illogical escapism, that means that you're never ever really going to truly work towards making your life and our existence as a collective a better one. I don't really believe it's anything, it's facts, but I just like that. That's fun. So, thanks for watching. Just another quick one today. I really wanted to test out all the buttons. I'm the OBG.
There's a man who contradicts. Wait, he's the type of guy to you. There's no first place, but he's part of a race. Eyes lie, but take a look inside. They mirror the sights you'll see.